Hi, this is Dan Root with QT Equipment. Behind me we've got this gorgeous Kenworth T370 that we just finished up for a customer in Ohio, Bedrock Earthworks. They're out of Baltimore, which is just southeast of Columbus, and that's Baltimore, Ohio, not Baltimore, Maryland. I posted this truck on Instagram a couple of times, one in the light and then one in the dark, because it's got a bunch of marker lights on it that look really cool in the dark. And got some messages from Instagram. They asked me if we could do a video. I talked to the owner. They said that would be great. So here we are. We're going to take a look at a couple of things on the chassis, some interesting things on the equipment, and let's dive in. This is a custom Kenworth T370 chassis. It's 33,000 GVW, and one of the most interesting things about this chassis is the two-tone paint job that they've got here. So this is a light silver and a darker gray. We've done it here before, but it's pretty inexpensive for Kenworth to do it at the factory. So just talk to your Kenworth representative about that. They've got a PX9 engine, which has 330 horse. And this truck also has a fuller 10-speed transmission. If you look back over the last 10-15 years, there's been an evolution in transmissions. We used to sell primarily manual transmissions with a couple of automatics thrown in, and now that's reversed. I would say that over the last couple of years, 90–95% of the chassis that we sell that are this size have the Allison 3000 RDS automatic transmission. The front axle, we've got the Alcoa aluminum wheels. This is a polished aluminum 56-gallon fuel tank, and this is probably 10 or 11 gallons of depth. And what's nice about this is that they've tucked it up underneath the cab, so you get a clean line, and we didn't have to move anything when we mounted the body. A couple of nice features here. They've got power and heated mirrors on both sides, so you can adjust the mirrors so that you've got good visibility, and you've got power windows on both sides, and you also have power locks. In the rear here we've got again the polished aluminum Alcoa wheels. We've got air suspension in the rear. It's important to note that if you order a chassis with a crane and air suspension, that you also order those with dump valves. That's much harder to add after the fact than it is for Kenworth to add at the factory. So make sure if you're buying a chassis off the lot and you want to turn it into a service truck, there's a couple of things that you need to watch out for, and one of those is the air dump valve. And the other thing I wanted to mention was the customer originally was looking to do this truck in a 4x4, which we've done a handful of 4x4 large 33,000 GVW trucks in the past. The cost is crazy. I think it's about $35,000 to get done, and the lead time is pretty long. So if there's somebody out there that's thinking about that, we quote it several times a year, and again, over the last 10 years, we've only done it 2 or 3 times. So it's possible, but very expensive. This customer spec'd this truck out with 4 American Eagle toolboxes. So we've got 3 of these standard toolboxes here, plus 1 over the horizontal compartment. You got plenty of tool storage. These American Eagle boxes are nice. The standard is gray, but you can get them in all kinds of different colors. We've done them in yellow, reds, and blues before. There's a whole list of different configurations and colors for these American Eagle boxes. The next compartment over here is just shelves. A lot of guys will put bolt bins in this, but we did these in just shelves. Again, you've got the 5 3-inch drawers here, the American Eagle drawers. And these are nice over the horizontal because you can put anything that's really long that may not fit in one of those other boxes. They'll fit just fine in these wider boxes here. And then shelves in the rear. You'll notice all the marker lights on this body. This truck has 56 marker lights on both sides. Customer came in, wanted to do this. We had never done it before. And rather than go to the factory and do the drawings and try to get this done at the factory, we took a standard body and laid all these out, and we drilled 56 holes in this body all the way around and made a custom wiring harness. Wired these up to the dash, and beyond just looking cool, and this truck does look cool in the dark, you're going to get great visibility if you're working on the side of the road. We've got the IMT 80 CFM rotary screw compressor. This also is the cold weather package compressor. So it's wired up to a switch on the dash. You're going to be able to turn that on when it's cold and warm your compressor up before you need it. Just a side note on that, the regular IMT compressor and the cold weather package compressor, there's no badging difference on those. So if you're looking at a truck and you want to know whether it's cold weather, you can open up the panel there and look in, and you'll see that it's got some heat wrap around the intake valve. We painted that, customer wanted that painted to match the front fenders. I was walking through the shop when this truck was built, and I looked at the compressor from the back and I'm like, who paint matched that? And so I asked the production manager, and he says, "Nah, look at the front, the fenders." So yeah, the compressor, this is a cooler for the hydraulic system, and the crane all match the front fenders, which is a good look. On the rear of the truck here, we've got two sets of amber strobes, again wired to the cab. We've got a work light, we've got an outlet that is wired up to the generator, the hydraulic generator, which we'll get to in a second. True IMT fans, though, know that something is missing. And I'll give you a second here to think about it, but the true IMT fans know that what's missing is the light box for the turn signal stop-start. The customer came to us and asked for that to be relocated into the bumper. Again, much easier for us to just handle that in-house rather than go through engineering at the factory. So this is a standard Dom 3 body that we sliced off the light box, and the guys did a great job of finishing that. You'd never know that this originally had a light box there. Finished the inside of the compartment and relocated those lights in the bumper like that. Before we get going with the rest of the truck here, I know that there's somebody out there that's saying, well, I don't know about putting those lights in the workbench bumper because they're just going to get damaged. We have worked on that, and we put a custom bracket on the inside of this workbench bumper that's removable, so that A, it'll protect the lights from anything rattling around, and B, if you ever need to replace these lights in the future, it's not a big deal to work on. For welding capability, this customer went with the GETEC, or it may be GETEC, I'm still not 100% sure the pronunciation of that, welder. This is a hydraulic welder, and it requires 24 gallons a minute. For this setup, instead of going with a single PTO and a triple pump, we went with dual PTOs, and this has its own dedicated 24 gallons a minute pump, so that if you're just using your crane and compressor, your welder doesn't need the flow during that time. This is a very high quality welder. You get 400 amps, plus you get battery charging, jump starting, and the welding here. If you go to the GETEC or GETEC website, the thing is right out of 1996 AOL dial-up. I'll be honest with you. It's not going to blow your socks off, but rest assured, we've got more than 100 of these welders in service over the last probably 8 years. Hans is up in the Catskills of New York in Ferndale. He builds these things by hand. They're very high quality and very reliable machines. One thing that I wanted to point out here, and you can barely even see it, we're testing our cameraman's ability to be able to pull this detail out, but you may be able to notice a real faint line right here. That's not a defect in the paint. We applied a 3M chip guard to the bottom areas here and kind of rolled it underneath to give the underside of this body a little bit more protection from rocks and things like that in the field. We've done bed liner before in kind of the same scenario. The bed liner has been really difficult to apply. This 3M chip guard is fairly easy, and it's going to give you some extra protection in the field. This is an IMT 12,000 30-foot crane, and hard to know that just by looking at it because the decals have been removed for paint. Most of the cranes we bring in are white, and if you want a crane color other than white, there's a couple of ways to go about that. One way is to ask the factory to paint it a different color when it's being built, and that's pretty inexpensive. They're happy to do it. Just provide them with a paint code and they'll paint it that color. Or the way we did it with this one, because this was a metallic that needed to match some other things, we brought this crane in white, removed the decals, and painted it in-house. That's much more labor intensive, which, little slip there, expensive to do it that way, but you are going to get a better paint color match. When we started painting, I figured that it was like a computer. You'd put the color in and you get the right color out, but especially with metallics and pearls, it is way more complicated than that. We're happy to do custom paint. We paint here in-house. In this case, because it was a metallic and we needed to match some other items on the truck, that's the way we elected to go. Inside the door, we've got the load chart for the 12,000 30-foot crane, and I wanted to point something out to you here. When cranes are spec'd, it's pretty easy to just go by the maximum lift. So the maximum lift on this crane is 12,000 pounds, and that's at 2 feet, so it's right up next to the truck. But nobody really works at the area up close next to your truck. You're working at some sort of distance away. And so if you compare the IMT 12,000 crane with the IMT 14,000 pound crane, you would expect the 14,000 pound crane to outlift the 12,000 in all areas, but it's not really true. If you look at the load chart at what I would consider a good working distance, the IMT 12,000 pound crane outworks the IMT 14,000 pound crane and also outworks some of the other manufacturers' 14,000 pound cranes. What I'm trying to say is you can look at the max pick, you should also look at the foot-pound rating, but more importantly, you should look at the load chart and think about what you're going to be doing at what distance away from the truck and make sure that you're speccing the right crane for the job. You can spec a 14,000 pound crane that's not going to pick up as much where you need it, and on top of that, you're going to spend a lot more money for an extra outrigger and a bigger crane. Long story short, take a look at the load chart, think about the work you want to get done, and select the right crane for the job. We've got our headache rack up here, and on the top is a beacon strobe. This is an amber strobe. And down here at the bottom, we've got a work light bar. This is 14 inches of light and 16.5 inches wide, and they consider this a spot flood. So you'll notice in the corners here, you've got the LEDs look a little bit different. So they're gonna spread light out wide, and the LEDs that are in the middle are gonna focus light over a long distance. They make these in a variety of sizes. This one draws 4.2 amps, but you can get them smaller, you can get an 8-inch, and you can get them all the way up to a 50-inch light, which I've seen on the side packs before, which is pretty nice for lighting up your work area. Another interesting thing on the specs I was looking at was, it says it's got an IP67 rating, and I didn't know anything about IP ratings, so I did some Googling, and this is what's considered an ingress protection, that's the IP, and then 6.7. The first number, the 6, is a rating for dust and solids, and that's a rating that goes from 0 to 6. So this light is at the very high end for dust, which is a good thing to have out in the field. And then the next number is a 7. That goes from a 0 to an 8 is the highest rating that you can get on that. So this light is on the top end of the range for water. You could submerge this in 1 meter of water, which is 3.3 feet for the rest of us that don't do metric, and this light will still work. So when we're speccing out lights, we never paid attention to this before, but with some occasional failures we've had of lights, hey, it's important to take a look at this IP rating to make sure that we are speccing out and helping the customer spec out a light that's going to hold up against dust and water in the field. Thanks for watching, and thank you most of all to Bedrock Earthworks for allowing us to feature your gorgeous truck in this video. It came out great. I'm very excited to deliver it to you. These guys know that quality equipment attracts quality employees. So if you're looking for a great place to work in Central Ohio, I would check out Bedrock Earthworks. If you are looking for a custom service truck, if you have some ideas that maybe not a lot of other people in the country want to tackle, we're your huckleberry. So find us on Instagram at QT Equipment, Facebook QT Equipment, or our website qtequipment.com. Work dirty, be happy. Until next time.